Hey Kevin, how are you?
Hi, Mike. Yeah, very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. Apart from all the rain at the moment, but apart from that, yeah, I'm good.
It's great.
It's
It's a
pretty
good
great.
day to do an indoor podcast.
It's a good today an indoor podcast, exactly, rather than doing a walking podcast.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Wouldn't be good,
It'd be very
exactly.
windy and you wouldn't hear a thing.
So what's today about?
So today is about how you grow as an agency and specifically around the function of when you bring in account managers and then actually the evolution of that becomes account management, project managers, and actually strategists, and how you can make those work together in terms of the right unit, the right skill sets, and the differences in skill sets and how that changes over time as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's a big passion and also kind of irritation of mine as well around what's the difference between the two, and at what point in the stage of your evolution do you need one or the other, and can you in fact get the both in one role? So why don't we start off by, you've obviously got in your mind a definition of
Yeah.
account management and project management. What does it mean?
Yeah, so I'll give you my story because then I feel like with all of this, everything is in this state of almost flux of you're learning what works for you. And there's different tried and tested models, but I think if I give you my version, this is how I've made it work, but I don't
Yeah,
think there's one single way to fix this problem.
but it illustrates the point, and I'll do the same. I'll tell you
Yeah.
about my journey, and then our kind of listeners can take their own view from that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like any independent agency that has grown, maybe say without funding, so you grow from one person to two people to three people, um, and you evolve based on winning clients. Obviously, some come in and they might have a ready-made team of 10, 15 getting started. But in my case, which I think is the most common, it would be you're good at doing the work. That's why you do it. And you're probably a freelancer. And then you get to a point of you sold enough work that then takes you into the next person.
That's
And
right, exactly.
what you find over that is in the early days, certainly even up to kind of 5 or 6 people, I think you just do what you need to do to get stuff done. So my natural evolution of that is I'll do great work, but I need to tell a client about it. And then as you grow and you bring in more people to deliver the work, I'm still involved in probably the new biz, introducing new clients. And because I'm the one that's won the new biz, certainly in those days, rather than there being a handover to the team, it's probably more I'm then the point of contact,
Yeah,
certainly at that stage. And um, there's then a natural point where, okay, well, now I'm doing the work, I'm managing the client relationship, but now I have a team, so I have to organize the team as well. And I think in the early days, I was definitely that hybrid of strategist, doer, organizer, account manager.
yeah,
And then I became less of a doer, more of the organizer, account manager, but probably still a strategist. So we'd still tell people this is what we're going
yes,
to do. And as we built a more senior, experienced team, they then started to guide that or at least challenge that to the point that actually they can now take it over and run with it. But yeah, there's different phases that you need to go through. And I think ultimately at a larger scale and in terms of being, I always quite like the whole T-shaped marketer, and I don't think this just applies to just marketing, but where rather than you being completely siloed in one profession or niche, um, or in this case, kind of technical SEO, content, PR, it's the same in this case of account management, project management, strategy. You can
mm-hmm.
have a hybrid. In my experience, I think I've only seen one person work really well at doing this hybrid role,
Yeah,
who's actually Dan Bianchini, who I worked with a long
oh
time.
yeah, I know
And
Dan.
um, a lot of people are very good at either the strategy or kind of client relationships is definitely an art in itself, and organization of the team is an art in itself. And I think Dan's a good example. I definitely did it in the early days. I think organization is my weakest point out of those, but if I need to get a team organized, certainly at that scale, it's something that, okay, well, we've got a plan, let's just do it and figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
But you reach a size where you just need to be more prepared. You need to have people that are really spending dedicated amount of time behind each. And then I guess there's different roles and responsibilities and KPIs behind what you're judging that for. And I think ultimately, again, as you grow, it's good to have one person that's focused on one thing primarily as a big objective and KPI. If you're responsible for retaining a client, growing a client, being profitable, organizing the team, making sure capacity is correct, and that's not even to mention the strategy, it becomes conflicted.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So as you go from, like all of us, when we start our businesses, it's a one person band at the beginning, and you're playing all the instruments. And then you find problems with clients that are deep-rooted problems that you can solve and deliver benefits. And then you start to recruit a few people.
Yeah.
And so you go from that one person to maybe 5 or 10 people, and then 10 to 30 or 50 people, and then 50 up to whatever. And in that journey, I think, once you're below like 10 people, I think we've discussed this before, in that kind of 3 to 10 category, the critical thing is delivering client excellence.
Yeah.
It has to be. Even if it means you're not as profitable, and even if it means your sales growth is very weak, you have to start there. Because without client excellence, there's nothing, because you've no reputation.
Yeah.
And to deliver that, my view is that you need really strong delivery project managers, digital PMs in our industry.
You do. And I think as a founder role, you can go into a point of actually the founder's biggest value, I think, is normally in attracting new business, new clients. And quite often it's the public relationships within the industry that you have. That's ultimately most agencies, even the larger agencies, as much as they will market themselves, it's word of mouth that generates the best clients.
Absolutely.
So, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, because you don't know where the next lead's coming from. But what it means is the more active you are, the more you're doing thought leadership and you're out in the industry and you're kind of walking the halls with clients and stuff like that. I think it helps. It definitely helps to make sure that you've got more coming through. But if you're stuck in doing the day-to-day, then actually it's harder. And certainly in my case, then it can be, you end up micromanaging everything. It's not actually good for the team. It's better for the team if you can allow them the chance to step up, take ownership. And as long as you're clear and you're aligned internally and with the client on what you're trying to achieve, again, there's different ways of achieving that. So how do you build the team around you to do that? Free yourself up a little bit and have clear responsibility. And I think the first hire is obviously more of a hybrid. You need someone that can account manage and project manage. And normally I think they're stronger at one or the other. They're either very good at understanding clients' pain points, challenges, and communicating to them that you're in a safe pair of hands. We know what we're doing. We've got a clear plan.
Yeah.
We'll understand whatever it is that you have that means we have to be agile and adapt, and we'll make that happen. And that's a very important skill set, because you need to understand from the client's perspective what their viewpoint is, how do they value your work, and what can you do to make them as happy as possible so that they continue as a client. And ideally you can then untap opportunities because what you're doing is working, or you see opportunities in other areas that allow you to grow that relationship as well. But I think that in itself is a specific skill set.
I mean, I think it's great if you look at I always think if you hit the end stops, you work out what the best choice is. And by the end stops, I mean, so let's assume that, your agency, you've grown it and you're like you're 4 people, and then you win a big account. And those 4 people were basically you all mucked in, and you as the founder plus the other 3 were all doing everything. And now it's like, oh, well, we've got another big client now, and it's a 10 or 15K a month retainer. So you have to now recruit some people.
Yeah.
If you hit the end stop, what I mean is you can either recruit a really good account director, brilliant account director, very good account director, but they don't have the digital PM skills, or you can recruit a digital PM that is brilliant at delivering client service, excellent results, focused on the outcome, but isn't necessarily very good at upselling.
Yeah.
If it was me, and if it was my business, I'd go a digital PM every time, every single time.
Yeah, so we had this discussion between ourselves probably 2 years ago, if not maybe a little bit longer, where we were talking about, we had a pod structure at the time.
That's right.
And we were talking about, do we have...
You want to explain what that is, by the way, just because listeners might not know. What do you mean by pod structure?
Yeah, so a pod is when you built a team, and I think at the time we were probably about 15 people. We had multiple clients and kind of like a head of SEO, head of content, head of PR structure. And the challenge we had is that became very siloed into those specific channels.
Yeah.
And clients would talk to one person that's the head of SEO. The head of SEO would have no idea what's going on with content PR. And the pod structure actually put together an SEO, content and PR person. Obviously, the channels will be different, whatever the agency and the service offering is. But the challenge we had with that is, in the old route, you have people that are what I would consider subject matter experts leading that function of the business. And that, I think in that model does make sense, because you need someone that, you can't really have a head of SEO that doesn't know about SEO. That has to be their strength. But at the same time, their weakness is probably more on the project management side and potentially on the client services side. We've definitely had someone in the past that was very good at SEO, but actually one of the key reasons he left us in the end was because he ended up doing too much account management and project management.
Exactly.
And again, I think that's something just to be wary of in these roles, that just by promoting, and again, this is across organizations, but by promoting the people that are good at doing into the more management roles isn't always better for them, and actually having a route for them to grow in the business, but not necessarily go into a management style role, I think is really important. But yeah, I guess going back to our situation, we were then, I think we had three options. You need someone to lead a pod or an individual mini client focused team. So they all had kind of 3 to 5 clients each typically. And the three options are: number one, you promote a strategist. And in our case, that would be an SEO strategist. We're here to get SEO results. And number two, you have an account manager. So someone that's very good at doing, basically setting the client relationships, as we said, and understanding the pain points, communication, reporting, meetings, etc.
And a good strategic brain. I mean, I think all the great account directors I've ever met, they aren't just walking the corridors. They are genuinely, they understand, as you say, the client problems and the benefits that need to be delivered, the business benefits, and they're matching kind of like the service to that problem and those benefits.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I also think in experience, there's two sides to that. There's one that they go through the account exec, promoted into the account management role, and it's potentially more about client relationships than it is about the work. And there's the other route that is more the strategist and the doer that then gets promoted into an account director. I would be an example of someone that my craft essentially is SEO, and then I've learned how to manage clients. And Dan, who I used as an example earlier, would be the same.
I was kind of, if you look at my background, go back to when I started my working career, I was basically an engineer and a project manager. What I was very good at was managing projects and programs of work. And to this day, Kevin, I mean, that you still draw on me for that expertise.
Exactly.
It's in my core. That's what I do. And I then found I was also pretty good at selling and managing client relationships. And within a big consulting firm, the only way you get to be a partner is if you can sell and you have a subject matter expertise. So typically we never recruited, as opposed to the marketing agency industry where you'd be an account exec and you'd be managing, small parts of an account. That didn't happen in the consulting firms because you entered the firm as an expert in a particular area.
Yeah.
What happened was you either went up the expertise route and became a practice lead, where you were the thought leader for that practice area, but maybe not become a partner. Or you came in and went through the ranks and you were aiming for partnership as I can sell work and I know my subject matter really, really well. And exactly. Clients will trust me.
And I would imagine in that route, there's a phase of which you need a project manager to work with you. So correct. The account director is very much, this is the direction that we're going in, and setting expectations with any clients that they have, but they need someone else that makes sure that the team can deliver on what they're doing. So even to some of the points you said before of, you might have everyone prepare a deck for you that you then spend an hour perhaps reviewing and some time where you can
that's right.
to them in terms of the edits. You then go through it with the clients, but the action points that you agree with that client, it's not you, because correct. Otherwise, if you're that hybrid of doer, communicator, etc., that it's too much. Whereas actually in this case, it can scale and you can still use your expertise. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about here.
It is.
How do you have someone that can organize the team? In an agency model, that might be a planner. So someone that works across those pods or mini teams and understands capacity. And then I think there's definitely a case for the account manager. In our model, what we found, which is what you were describing before, is the most important thing for us is results for our clients.
Absolutely. Has to be.
Account management without results is possible, but it opens over the cracks. And
we've seen it, Kevin, we've seen it work. We know what happens. Very good account directors and account managers can get you so far where the client goes, okay, I'll believe you. I look forward to our next meeting with the results. They're just delaying the inevitable.
They are delaying
the poor delivery. Eventually, you get fired. The client just says, I can't cope with this anymore.
We've had it with clients in the past where they've challenged what we're doing or the results that we're having, and I've gone back to them with a very clear plan of, I agree, this didn't work the way it should have. This is what we should do next. And the issue with that is their reaction was, I love this plan. I think this is great, but why haven't you delivered this or done that before?
Exactly.
And I can't answer that question. The only way to fix that is in hindsight, do that.
Why the QBRs are so important. I mean, interesting that this account management, project management, and the role of the founder, one of the things that links it all together is the QBR. Because the QBR is it's the backstop whereby you can't go too far ahead of yourself or get too far behind before there's a strategic meeting about what have we achieved, what were the objectives, what's the plan for the next quarter. You've always then got time to go, let's reset expectations.
And I think the important part of that is it makes that a two-way conversation.
Definitely.
Because a client-agency relationship can typically be, we're the budget holder, we're in charge, we're your boss, essentially.
Yeah.
And go away and do stuff. And that's not where we want to be. We want to be a strategic partner. And that takes, and again, there's a lot of, these almost sound like cheesy cliches, and I think it's because everyone says it, but again, like being results driven is one of them. You have to show results, you can't just say it. The other one is the extension of the team. That again, it's overused, but I think it's true. It's like you have to be in that position where you say, this is what we're doing, this is what we see, this is how we think your competitors are working, but what's the insight from the client and how you bring that together? And the QBR is a great opportunity to say, this is where we wanted to be, this is what's happened, these are our learnings, transparently showing this is what has worked, but also this is what we would have expected to go better.
Yeah,
I think really helps from a client perspective if you're on the same team. It's not, and I've definitely seen this in the past, it's not a case of, here's a report, but let's remove all of the stuff that's bad because we don't want to show them that. We'll just show them the good stuff because then they'll be happy. That's account management that papers over the cracks.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
And it's just pushing that problem down the road to the point that the real issue that you've just swept under the rug has not been addressed, it's not been fixed, and it's growing out of control.
Correct. And you'll still get fired. It's just
You'll
now
still
you
get
get fired in 3 months rather than this month.
Yeah, so maybe you get an extra 2 or 3 months worth of billing.
But ultimately, the client's dissatisfied.
The alternative is you fix a real problem and you get an extra 3 years worth of billing. So,
So
I
are
think
we kind of aligned in our thinking around up to about, probably as a marketing agency, up to about that kind of 20 to 30 people, you probably need to focus more on hiring brilliant digital PMs with a founder that's working the relationships. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. And I also think if there's other founders listening to this, from a founder to founder perspective, I think that de-risks you a little bit, because if you're out of touch with all of your clients, then that's a difficult place to be. And I know for me,
Great point.
There's a balance of, I don't want to be involved too heavily in the day-to-day, because this is why we hire a team. We hire a team because they're stronger than me at their individual roles, whether that's technical SEO and the delivery versus account management and project management. However, if I'm just involved in, I don't know, here's a new biz, or they might not even see me then. It's, as a smaller independent agency, I think that's difficult. As a larger agency, you're probably more than happy with that. But I like to be in a position where I can oversee a QBR, I can challenge our team and support them in areas that they need to be in.
Yeah.
It's not all consuming in terms of my time. And likewise, it allows me to have a relationship with a client where they know I'm taking care of this. I can put my name on it and I can say, if there's any problems, I'll fix it. So outside of that QBR, I quite frequently just go to our clients and just request a call as a catch up. And it can be more ad hoc and probably outside of those QBRs in terms of not being too close to that same point in time. But if they know they've got an escalation point and there's anything that's going wrong with a team, and they can bring it up to me. The worst thing is they don't say anything and then you get fired.
Yeah.
So there's a client that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, and I always ask them, it's just like, I'm not going to take any offense to this. Any feedback you can give us is completely useful and constructive, and we can use it to improve. Is there anything we can do to make your life better, easier? And their reaction was no. And it's kind of like, as a founder, I should be happy with that. But you could almost see the disappointment on my face, because I'm a founder that, like, one of our values is continuous improvement.
Yeah.
If I can see areas of weakness, in a weird way, I thrive on that, because then it's, okay, we need to get better at this, and that's how we're going to improve. And it's definitely not okay, when this is a problem, we need to, we do need to fix it, but not in a finger pointing way. It's about the company and the organization and how we work. It's not about the people. It's about improving that process and listening to our clients and understanding what they value. And I think that's a really important role for the founder, is if you lose touch with your clients, how do you know how to service them?
Exactly. So kind of like summarizing, because we're kind of at the back end now. So my takeaway from this is, as you grow your business as a founder up to that kind of, probably between 15 and 30 people, maybe. It sounds like what you're saying, and I definitely concur, is that you want to focus on the founder role being client facing, making sure that you are bringing in the new business, but also that you're in touch with the client expectations, the client outcomes, the strategic agenda, and you want to hire brilliant digital PMs that can run programs of work for clients. And you worry about account directors if you can't obviously afford them at the beginning, until after that kind of you've got past about 20, 30 odd people.
Absolutely. I think that's the right model. The one thing I would say with that model is you have to match project managers up with subject matter experts.
Yes.
For the reason that if a client asks you, you've just done this audit, what does this thing mean? And they ask that to a digital project manager, they're not going to know the answer. Absolutely. And the client very quickly gets frustrated by the answer of, I'm going to have to check that with someone. And
I'll come back to you.
And you have to protect that person's time so that, again, there's a balance. So you don't want them to be too client facing all of the time, because then they're not doing the work. But you also can't completely alienate the client from the person that has the answers. So it's, if you can match up a subject matter expert with a project manager,
Exactly.
you might get this rare breed of someone that is a great hybrid and they can do all of that. And if they can, I would say take advantage of that and use it, but make sure that you understand them and what makes them tick and excited and happy, because you might find they become disillusioned in that role. But if you don't find that rare breed, match the two up, find the subject matter expert and make sure that you can partner them together with the project manager when it comes to the client-facing work.
I mean, I've only seen one company in the marketing agency world whereby there were two founders of the company, and one was brilliant at service delivery and one was brilliant at account management. That's a very, very rare combination. And I think if you're a sole founder of a business and you're growing, then I think that model stands the test of time, I think.
It does. I would also argue that even in that situation, you probably need to outgrow it and scale it and pick something that actually, what is your strength out of those two? Is it working with clients? Is it setting strategy? Is it managing projects? Because as you get bigger clients or more revenue, it just doesn't scale. You can't spread yourself too thin. So you need to pick a route as well. But at a certain scale, it does work, but you need the right personality and mindset behind that.
Very good. I think that's about it.
Yep.
As always, great to talk to you, Kevin. Look forward to the next one.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.